All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Talk About Flow podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. I am your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you very much for locking in, whether it's on the audio side, Spotify, Apple, all that stuff, or on the video side via YouTube. This is Casual Friday. I'm excited to say Casual Friday because it's been a minute since we've had a Casual Friday episode on here, which of course means once again, I am joined by my good friend, my buddy, Joe Yerdon. What's up, buddy?
What's going on?
How are things right now? How you doing?
Well, I'm
all things considered.
I'm
of course
doing, like that's about my steady answer right now. It's just like, yeah, just
you're doing
kind of going, it is, you try to deal with stuff like that. It's tough, but
it is. I'm sure.
But yeah, it's first time in like I don't know, more than a month where I feel like I'm like in a little bit better of a headspace. So, it's time to, I've been slowly getting back on the horse with doing this stuff. So, we've been doing maintenance day here for the last couple of weeks, and that was good to get back to doing that. But that was about all I really had the patience to do. So now I'm just kind of like, all right, been having some laughs, cutting some jokes lately. So
a win for everybody.
Time to get back and doing this, Gotta.
In all seriousness, Joe, let me just say one thing, and then we'll dive in. We got, of course, Bill Sabres, our starting five. I just want to say this. I hope through this whole process, which has been obviously a horrible, shitty process for you, I just hope that when something terrible happens, and everybody who's listening and knows, Joe, you already know, I just wanted to say that I think it's really cool, at least to be able to take some comfort in just how many people, whether it's reaching out to you directly or you're seeing tweets and stuff like that, just know that you've been in people's thoughts. You know what I'm saying? When something really shitty happens, I just hope, certainly here with me and with people who listen here, just well wishes and stuff like that. It's, I feel like when you go through something bad, even if you don't realize it at the time, maybe when you have more time to reflect as things go on, you start to look back and you reflect and you're like, it's really comforting to know that you got friends and strangers or just people who admire your work, who you are, what you do, that are out there that care about you. You know what I mean? That kind of helps lift you up a little bit. And I hope you kind of have felt that over the last several weeks, because I know I have felt that way, and I know lots of people have as well.
Yeah, it's going through something like this, having the death of a parent, it's the kindness of others is something you really have to lean on, because you're caught in your own head. You're too busy being concerned with your own family and everything else, that goes along with that you don't, there's a lot of times that you don't give time for yourself. So, having others just be like, hey, thinking about you, like they send a message, texting, DM, whatever it is. It's nice, and people are always like, man, I really wish I could do something more for you. And I'm just like, listen, this is you talking to me right now is exactly what I needed. So, when it comes to things like that, I'm such a classic, like, I don't know if it's like Catholic school guilt kind of person, where it's like, if anybody goes like above and beyond, or even does something like, they bring like a dish for you to eat or something, because they're like, listen, you got to eat. We know you're not thinking about eating. Just do that. Somebody does that and it's like, no, don't do that. Don't do anything of the sort. Please don't. And, you just have to just understand that people want to help, and you have to be open to that. So, so it's a matter of just, just being accepting of other people having concern for you. So everything about it is a huge, unbelievable change, but certainly having people reach out and, in any way that they have is really nice.
Well, I will say this too, to your credit as an on-air talent, as a podcast talent. And I told you this a couple of weeks ago too, when you started slowly getting back in and you did maintenance day, the first pod you did, and the second one as well. I was like, and I told you this, I was like, all right, so if I had just, if I was sleeping under a rock and I had just woken up and I didn't know anything had happened and I missed the first 3 minutes of the first episode that you did with Lance Lasowski, the Buffalo News of maintenance day, when you jump back, I would have never known. I would have never known anything was going on, man. That's a credit to you. I'm just saying, you were able to compartmentalize that when you did the show. I was like, damn, I would have never known, man. It was a
Yeah.
good episode.
Well, thanks thanks for saying that. Because I'll tell you this, doing that one, we got done with it. Lance and I chat for a little bit after we get done with it.
Mhm.
We get done, and then I put it out the next day. I set it up to come out the next day because we always record on Sundays. But when I was done with that one, I needed a little while to just kind of decompress
Sure.
and just kind of not necessarily relax, but just kind of like let your head flush a little bit, just trying to get like, okay, did something normal again for the first time in a while. So, that's like a micro change of all that. Cause it's like, you've had your mind stuck on something for, weeks, days, weeks, months, years. And now you're just kind of like, all right, let's ease back out into the world. Let's try to get some of the normal stuff back. And it's just like that's a big change. Having that happening, getting back to normal. Like, you don't understand. Like, people don't get like what a huge change that is to like get back to normal. Oh, I'm messing with my chair here. But like just getting back into like the old flow of things is like, wow, I'm doing this again. Okay. Like, all right. It's like, it's not like riding a bike, but it's like going back outside after, you've been cooped up for a while,
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
you're just kind of like, all right, is everything the same? Is anything different? Like, how does this work?
I want to thank also Chad D. Dominicis who subbed in for a couple weeks over the last month or so. But it's funny. I told him this, and he got a good laugh. I said, "Yo, it's not Casual Friday, and I ain't doing no starting fives. I said, I only do the drafts with my man Joe. Which, by the way, I should have been more eager to do drafts with Chad or somebody else because it probably would increase my chances of winning a little bit more than I have. But anyway, yeah, it's good to have you back, and we'll talk Bills and Sabres. One of the things I love about doing Casual Friday is that basically we talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about beyond just Bills and Sabres. And one of the things that you and I have in common that there's not a lot of sports media people that do, or at least people that I talk to on the show, is that we both have had, for the most part, a lifelong fandom of professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And this past weekend, of course, was WrestleMania. So I'd be remiss before we get into Bills and Sabres stuff if I didn't ask you your thoughts on WrestleMania weekend. It was a 2-night event, of course, and just, I don't know, wrestling lately in general, because I actually have a take. But before I give you mine, I want to hear yours. Like, what did you think over this past weekend?
I'll be honest with you. I mean, I had other stuff going on where, it was taking a back, wrestling was taking a backseat to that.
Sure.
And WrestleMania for me in the past has always been like, you got to sit down, you got to watch. Like, that's even if you haven't been watching it for a long time or maybe never at all, it's an event. Like, it's a big deal. But even being out of tune with a lot of what's going on with WWE, I'm just like, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can tune into WrestleMania and just be like, oh, okay, I'm caught up. Because they're always doing those, the video packages where it's like, okay, let's sum up everything that's happened.
Right.
And now you're caught up. So sure. You don't have to worry about that. But like everything about that, WWE lately has just been like such a turn off. Like, because so much of it is just, it's like watching a show that you've always loved and the writing gets really bad, but you try to stick with it because you always have. And then at some point you're just kind of like, you know what? I'm just, I got other stuff to do. And, it's kind of like the Simpsons effect, Simpsons for, 10, 15 years was just like, wow, it's mandatory TV. Like, it's still going 15 years after that. We're 30, 31 seasons into the Simpsons, and it's just kind of like, yeah, it's still going. That's cool. But like, I'm not making time on Sundays to watch it. Like, I'm just not doing it. So like in the case of WrestleMania, it's 2 nights and each night is like 5-6 hours of stuff going on. And it's like, like doing one night for 5 hours, that's cool. I mean, it's a long night, it's a lot of stuff going on, but I 2 nights of it, and there's so much filler. There's so much filler with stuff, and it's like, come on already.
The video packages, the promos were just too much.
It's just, people
time.
yapping. They're just cramming stuff in there. But I did make time to make sure I saw Stone Cold Steve Austin's and Kevin Owens, because I was convinced that Austin wasn't going to do any wrestling, and then he calls him out. He comes down the ramp and he's in his gear, and I'm like, yeah, he's wrestling all right.
Like a 13 or 14 minute. Well, I'm using air quotes when I say match, because it was more just a fight around the ring and outside. But man, he delivered the goods.
I think he just wanted to have like the last match that he ever does be in home in Texas, which is I respect that. Like his first match ever was in Texas. So he wants to finish it in Texas. And granted, he hadn't had a match in 13 years, 14 years?
19.
19.
19 years, man. Wow. Yeah.
So
19 years since his last match, which, by the way, that was at WrestleMania in Seattle, which I, by the way, was at. I went to Seattle.
You were at that one.
I was at that one. Yep. I went to 3 straight WrestleManias, 18, 19, and 20. I went to Toronto for 18, Seattle for 19, and then New York City for 20. He lost to The Rock in his last match. It was 19 years ago.
The Toronto WrestleMania was, I was wrapping up college that year, and I had, our college station, we had there was a radio show on our station. There was a wrestling radio show. It was essentially the college version of like Howard Stern, but with wrestling stuff going on. And like all the guys from that show went to Toronto, because us, we go to Toronto, like it's no big deal. Like you're driving to Buffalo, then you're driving up here. It's no big thing. And like we weren't watching it on campus. We didn't have pay-per-views, accessibility in the dorms. Like that just wasn't happening. But when I had heard what happened, I was like, holy crap. And like there were, like how everything went down with that Hogan Rock match and everything, and my friends were just like, you would not believe how loud it was. And
it was crazy
how everybody was like rooting for Hogan, because, like everybody's, because he was, it's Hogan, this is before all the, the insane nonsense that's happened with his life since then. But and all the really bad stuff.
It wasn't supposed to be like that. It was just shocking. I'll never forget sitting in the stands, and because I was a big Rock fan, and I was Team Rock, and it's like, holy shit, man! Everybody in this arena just started rooting for Hogan, and it was just electric. To your point, and I agree about wrestling in general. And you and I have talked about this, man. It's like, all right, so I've liked wrestling my whole life. Over the last 2 years, I've been really turned off, especially by WWE. Like I've started to watch AEW more and more, and I really enjoy that. WWE has been a big turnoff for me. For the first time over the last 2 years, like right around COVID time, I stopped watching it weekly. I used to always watch it weekly, or at worst, I would DVR it and then go back and watch it. Now, for the last couple of years, I skip 90% of the shows, maybe even more than that. And I go back like the next day on cage side seats, and I read the recaps just so I can always keep up on what's going on without actually having to watch it. But I kind of got into it over the last couple of weeks. And I'm going to be honest with you, Joe, WrestleMania weekend this past weekend, I really liked it, especially Saturday. I thought it was good, man. I thought Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch, that was an awesome match, man. That might be a match of the year candidate. I thought that was really good. Plus, I didn't know who was going to win, which is rare. We all knew Cody Rhodes was coming back, but him and Seth Rollins, they delivered. That was a good match. Logan Paul was way better than I thought. There were lots of good matches. And then even on Sunday, like, I enjoyed the Johnny Knoxville Sami Zayn match. I thought it was actually fun. I took it for what it was. You mentioned Stone Cold. That was fucking awesome. And that he actually had a match, and it was a kind of sort of typical. I mean, he was limping around pretty good, but you still saw some glimpses of the old Stone Cold. Pat McAfee and Austin Theory was the match of the night on Sunday for sure, which again kind of surprised me. There were only a couple shitty matches. The Kofi Kingston Xavier Woods squash match was bullshit. And Charlotte and Ronda, that just didn't deliver. They don't have any chemistry, and that's kind of obvious. And the main event was what you expected it to be. But anyway, I liked wrestling. And then I started saying to myself, man, I missed this. I was reminded of why I loved wrestling so much. But the very next night, Monday Night Raw, for the first time in probably a year, maybe longer, I was actually woke up Monday and kind of moved things around my schedule so that I could watch Raw live. I was excited. I'm like, cool. Shit sucked. It was corny. It was stupid. Usually the Raw after WrestleMania is awesome. There were no like really great debuts. There were no shockers, no surprises, no new angles that got progressed forward. It's just the same old shit. And then I was reminded instantly like why I stopped becoming such a fan over the last couple of years, man. But Yeah, and then I watch AEW. I watched FTR and who was it? Was it the brothers? What's their names?
Young
The
Bucks.
Young Bucks. Oh God, how
Yeah.
can I forget
Oh,
them?
how do you forget the Young
I
Bucks,
watched it
man?
just last night. We're taping this Thursday afternoon.
Mhm.
Oh, fucking incredible match.
Yeah.
So wrestling's still good. It's just WWE, man. They just disappoint me. You put on a great show, a great product over the weekend. I thought anyway they deliver, and then they just bounce right back to the same old bullshit.
Yeah. WWE's become
Yeah.
like a sideshow Bob thing. There's rakes all over the ground, and they're making damn sure they're going to step on every single one of them. And just every time they're just surprised they stepped on a rake. They're so how did this happen? I don't understand. Like I don't get why this is going on. But I got 1,000 theories as to why it is the way it is, and most of them all end up being it's because Vince is still running the show, and Vince really embarrassed himself on Sunday night when I saw with his run-in with Stone Cold, because Vince came out looked like he was jacked up on gorilla hormone, and he's 80 years old taking stunners. Like, just dude, enough already. Like, he's dyeing his hair, he's doing like he's pretending it's 1993 again, and it's like, man, like those days are over, man. You shouldn't have been doing that when you were 50. Never mind that you're 80 now. Like that's I mean, I don't get it. Good on him for creating like this whole thing that's made him extremely wealthy, but geez, stop eating. Like that's like what it's weird. Like in since Scott Hall passed, and everybody talked about how Hall always sold the stunner in like the most amazing way.
Yeah.
And then you see Vince out there basically looking to get his head cut off by Austin. He can't sell it because he's ancient, and it's like,
yeah,
oh my God, man.
That was hard to watch. To Austin Theory and Pat McAfee's credit, though, they both they sold the hell out of the stunner really well. What an awesome, by the way. So we dropped this on Friday. We call it Casual Friday. We're taping this Thursday around lunchtime, and out of the corner of my eye right now, because what an awesome fucking sports day this is. You got round one of the Masters with Tiger Woods right now, and you have also Major League Baseball opening day, which whatever. I'm tempering my enthusiasm for that a little. I'm still kind of mad at baseball, but anyway, dude. All right, now we're taping, so a lot could happen by the time you listen to this or watch this tomorrow. But as of right now, Tiger Woods is on the 6th hole. He's even par, and on the 6th tee, which is a par 3, he came in less than 3 feet away from a hole in one right now. So that I can't believe your man's playing 14 months after nearly losing his leg. If life was in danger.
Yeah.
And now this dude's even par through 5 holes, and he almost just got a hole in one on the 6th. So
you just made me look over it. Like I got another window with like my browser stuff open. I was like, what? Because as soon as you started saying that, I was like, oh, what did Tiger do? What happened? And then I see a screen cap of the shot right by the hole.
He's been kind of laboring around the first 5 holes, but he's managed to keep making pars. He had a really nice par putt or for a save for a par on one. Besides that, he's kind of like, middle of the green. He's making pars. There's nothing just special.
Hitting the target, not really throwing darts.
But goddamn, that's just that's incredible. Anyway, all right, so let's jump into some Bills talk real quick here. I want to say this. So we won't talk about the Stephon Diggs extension. It's good. It's good for him.
No,
it's good for Josh. It's good for the offense. The money was kind of sort of what we thought it would be, especially after Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams end up going to other teams to get their money. And I'll say this: the one thing I will say though is the timing. I think it had to be done now. Like some people were like, "You still got 2 years left. Let's wait till after the season." Nope. And the reason why is because that next group that's coming up, the Justin Jeffersons and lots of other receivers, they're going to get big money. Pay your guy now. And the Bills, to their credit, did that. There's always going to be fallout when something like that happens, and it appears we're starting to get a little bit of it right away with Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer is a very, very good safety for the Bills. He has been for 5 years. He was an all-pro this year for the first time in his career. Great player, good asset to Buffalo. But literally in the hours that followed from Stephon Diggs signing, it's announced that he hired Drew Rosenhaus is now his agent to represent him. And he's got one more year left on his deal, one more year left, 10.76 million cap figure for this year. He turns 31 years old, though, Joe, later this month. That's not young for a safety. No. He signed a 2-year, $19.5 million extension just in 2020. I looked it up. Right now, currently, he's the 13th highest paid safety in the NFL, average per year salary. And there's only one player among those other 12 who are older than him, and that's Harrison Smith of the Vikings, who is 31. So this looks like, again, when something good happens and guys are all getting paid, the other guys are going to be like, well, where's my money? It kind of feels like we're going through that right now with Jordan Poyer. And we're going to talk draft in a minute, too, because this kind of ties into a draft line of thinking that I have. But maybe Buffalo's most polarizing Twitter figure, for good or better or worse, Rachel Bush, you know who I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
She went on a Twitter pay my man spree, advocating for her man, retweeting what everybody's saying about your man getting paid. One tweet got a lot of people's attention, and it got deleted. She deleted it. It was a screenshot, but people screenshot it because, of course, this is Twitter. This is what she said. Jordan's been taking team-friendly deals. He's an all-pro. He has 1 year left on his contract. Diggs had 2. She's using that direct comparison right now. Did you complain about that as well? You want a Super Bowl? Do what it takes to get there this year. Need them all. Let me get your thoughts first. Again, what's going on? It's becoming obvious Jordan Poyer wants to get paid. Who doesn't want to get paid? I ain't mad about that. But this seems like this has the potential, at least, to get into an ugly situation, because say what you will about Rachel Bush, but at the end of the day, she is the man's wife. And I'm sure her opinion has at least carries some weight with him. And it's kind of becoming obvious that she's nice about Buffalo on the outside, but it's kind of like you get the sense that maybe she's not as fond of Buffalo as you would like. And I'm being nice here. Right? I'm trying to be nice. I don't know a nice way to say it, but what are your thoughts on all this? It just has potential to kind of get a little bit ugly, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the possibility is definitely there. I'm one of the many thousands Rachel Bush has blocked on Twitter. I've never interacted with her once, ever. I know I've said some things where it's just like, I was like, why does this keep happening? And I think that was enough to make her be like, whatever, get this hockey guy out of my mention, which I was
full disclosure,
never been in her mentions. But
full disclosure, Joe, I am one of like the 600 something people that she actually follows on Twitter, so I'm not blocked. I don't throw that out there, but it ain't about me. It's about you. I want you're not, because you're right. She blocks everybody. She literally blocks everybody.
But I this is something where I get her point. Like the point is easy to make. Like Jordan Poyer deserves to get a nice payday. Like that's flat out. If she just says, hey, listen, he's an all-pro, forget the Pro Bowl nonsense. Who cares about that? But like, he's an all-pro safety.
Yeah.
Pay the guy. Like, he's making 10 million. I don't know how much of that, 10 million cap hit anyways. I don't know how much of that is like really a team friendly deal. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's, salary cap's like 200 whatever million in the NFL, but I don't really know how that compares with some of these other safeties, but like, Minkah Fitzpatrick's he's about to really cash in with the Steelers, or he already has. I don't know if he's waiting to get signed or he's gonna, but like that dude's gonna get paid. And Poyer's played on that level, but Fitzpatrick's younger, so I get it, but I have the feeling that if they can't get things worked out, Rosenhaus, like, listen, everybody knows Drew Rosenhaus. He gets guys paid. It's like Scott Boras in baseball. It's you go to him, you're looking to cash in, which you deserve. And he deserves to. But you're right. Like if it ain't in Buffalo, she's gonna be driving the moving truck out of here. Giving everybody the finger. That's she's gonna be like, so long, Stink Town, and like take off. Like that's how she'll feel about Buffalo. But
yeah, the her Twitter might become a much uglier place. Her Twitter space,
especially if he signs in like New England or Miami or someplace.
Miami,
like
that,
yeah,
totally could see it. But you're a big Florida fan, so you're right. 100% right. The problem with Jordan Poyer, Joe, I think, is this. I don't think there's a lack of appreciation. There's certainly, first of all, there's no lack of appreciation from the fans. They love Jordan Poyer. And I don't think there's any lack of appreciation from the front office either. I mean, the guy did get paid 2 years ago. He signed a 2-year extension 2 years ago in 2020. The problem is you can't pay everybody. It's just the way it works in sports right now. I mean, they just paid Stephon. They gave Josh Allen a monster deal. They just emptied the vault for Von Miller. They signed a shitload of free agents. They're trying to win a Super Bowl right now. We're going to find out how important winning a Super Bowl really is to a player like Jordan Poyer. Does that come number one before his personal contract? Because again, you go into the offseason, you got Jordan Poyer, you got Dawson Knox, you got Devin Singletary, Ed Oliver is going to be coming up on his option year. You got a big decision potentially to make on Tremaine Edmonds, who's in his 5th-year option right now. Do you move on from him or not? So there's a lot of guys out there worthy of getting paid. And by the way, Dawson Knox is not just a throw-in name. These tight ends are getting $8 to $10 million right now. And based on how he played last year, if he continues to improve on that, that's a 10 million plus tight end. If not in Buffalo, somewhere else, maybe they franchise tag him. We'll see how that plays out. But you can't pay everybody. He is going to be 31 years old. And I think the way this will work out with him is you play the year out. And then, well, this is the Bills' perspective. What I think they want to do is have him play it out and then see if they can find a deal that works for both sides after the season. I don't think they're going to give him big money right now. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're going to. And I think the problem lies is that he wants money right now. Now, the worst case scenario, and I don't know if you're worried about this at all. Well, you're not worried about it because you're not really a Bills fan. We talk about that many times.
No skin off my nose.
No skin off you. But do you I don't want to say fear. Do you think there's a chance that this could get to the point where Jordan says, I want a new contract or I'm holding out? I would say no 100%, but Drew Rosenhaus being his agent right now concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know that would be the smartest play to do.
Right,
that.
I agree.
I think that's on a team that can win the Super Bowl. I think that's a really bad idea because, I think about like all the stuff that happened with Beasley this past season and how, that was a very obvious distraction, even though people try to be like, no, it's fine. We know, like something like this would definitely fall into that category of, all right, man, I thought we were a team here. Like, just, like, listen, we know you want to get an extension. You want to get paid. We get that. But like, keep that stuff out of everybody's attention. Don't, I know Poyer doesn't really say a lot, on social media when it comes to that stuff. But like, you think you're going to keep Rachel Bush quiet on this stuff? No way. And she's going to be beating the drum, all year. But I mean, I think there's another pressing part to it. And from Poyer's point of view, though, is that if he shows any sort of, showing that, he's getting older this season, then it's like, all right, man, well, we're not paying you what you think you should get. And if you think you're going to get it elsewhere, okay, good luck to you. But, I certainly understand why he wants to get that bag right now, get it locked up. So that way, if things do start to, come down, contracts in the NFL get wiped out, very quickly anyways. But like, you got to make sure you get it taken care of. I mean, any sort of freaky stuff could happen this year. I mean, get your knees taken out, boom, career over. Or, you're not going to be anywhere near the same kind of player. Any kind of weird stuff can happen. So I get like trying to press for that, but holding out, I don't see that being a very productive way to do it. But I mean, listen, if you feel like you're pressed into doing something, like you feel like you got to make that move, these kinds of things can happen. Now, I don't think it will. But I mean, if it did, I wouldn't be entirely shocked. And honestly, the Bills would be pretty under the gun to do it because, you lose Levi Wallace, you've lost some parts to your secondary. You don't know how Trey White's going to come back from his injury. The secondary is a strength. It's a huge strength for them, but it's got some cracks now. So
sure,
if you're Poyer, you could use it as a power play and flex on it. But I don't know how many. Well, you're certainly not going to make anybody in the front office or the coaching staff very happy with it. But because players understand you got to get the bag. But I think that they understand that to a certain point. Like if it causes you to miss games or miss practices and it makes your game suffer, then like guys ain't going to be happy.
I'm generally very pro player when it comes to financial stuff. I think these guys should go get the money while they can, especially in football, because unlike other sports, where in other sports, you put your name on that contract, you're getting every single penny. In football, that's not the case. If you underperform whatsoever, you're cut. Sometimes you perform up to your standards or even more, you still get cut because the team has salary cap issues and they want to cut you so that they can afford to go out and sign somebody else and give them your money. So generally speaking, I am kind of pro player when it comes to money. But that said, they did sign him as a free agent, and they gave him more money than any other team in the league was going to back in 2017. They did reward him with a very generous 2-year extension 2 years ago that made him among the top dozen or so paid safeties in the NFL. It's kind of been one of those, it's worked for us and it's worked for you deals. And again, this team, the culture is all about winning the Super Bowl and this and that. I don't think he's going to hold out. I'm just saying I wouldn't completely write that off. But I'll tell you what, here's what I want to do. I want to take a really quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the draft because this kind of ties into Jordan Poyer a little bit. And then we'll get into some Sabres talk and we'll do our starting five. So I'll be right back, folks. All right, I'm back with Joe Yerdon. So kind of tying us into the draft. Now, look, you look at this roster and whether you're a fan of the team or even if you just loosely even follow them, it's pretty obvious that right now, if there's one position on this team that has a hole, so to speak, it's obviously cornerback. I mean, you just hit on this. Trey White, he's got to come back 100% before Trey White is Trey White. They only have Dane Jackson right now. I don't want to say they lost Levi Wallace to Pittsburgh because I feel like for what he got paid there, which was only $4 million a year, the Bills could have gotten him back. I kind of think that they wanted to move on from him. They didn't want to pay their second cornerback $4 million a year. But anyway, it's thin. And then you look at the draft. So you're like, all right, well, I mean, it's pretty damn obvious the Bills should go get a cornerback with their first pick. The problem could be with the draft, and I'm sure it's like this with other sports too, is the old value in talent versus need. And when you look at the corners, so Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley are the two top corners. They ain't going to be around at 25. I don't spend 2 seconds thinking about them. Those are guys you probably have to get up into the top 10 if you even want to think about trading up for them. Andrew Booth Jr. is another guy, probably almost certainly not going to be there at 25, although Tom McShay had him at 25. I still don't buy it. And then after that, you got another group of corners, and we're not going to sit here and dissect these players. But my point is, if you have your first pick, and yeah, sure, you need corner, but you want the fifth or sixth corner off the board as opposed to other positions. What Brandon Beane showed me last year and has me thinking, Joe, is like last year they had Hughes and Addison. They both had 1 year left on their deal, and they drafted 2 defensive ends with their first 2 picks because I think Brandon Beane said, all right, we got to get a better pass rush now, but also more importantly, this is a cost control premium position that now we got for 5 and 4 years under contract. They move on from Hughes and Addison, both of them this year. And they got 2 young, cheaper players. With Von Miller, who's not young and not cheap. Mm-hmm. But my point is, they drafted for the future as much as the present last year. And I kind of feel like that's Brandon Beane's ammo. So it kind of circling us back to Jordan Poyer, who is 31, is under the last year of his contract. If Kyle Hamilton, who's a safety from Notre Dame, there were lots of talk of him being a top 5 pick. I think if he gets around 8 to 10 or like that 8 to 12 range, I can see the Bills going out and trying to get somebody like him. Because then you're getting Jordan Poyer's big contract off your books. You're getting a younger safety. Or if not safety, another guy who I've thought of is Tremaine Edmonds, who is maybe in his last year with this team. And there's a linebacker, Devin Lloyd, who's probably projected around that 12 to 20 range, somewhere around that. Let's just say 12 to 20. They might trade up for a guy like that. Don't go assuming that because corner's the biggest need, that's what the Bills are going to target earliest in the draft. And one other thing, I don't think Brandon Beane gives a shit that much about cornerback 2 for whatever reason. I think he feels like if you got a good enough secondary and a good enough front 7, it don't mean that much. Because it's been years now, dude. Vontae Davis, Josh Norman, EJ Gaines, Levi Wallace. They haven't been putting resources into that position for years. So I'm not quite sold that they're automatically going to take a corner early in this draft just because it's their biggest need on paper.
Yeah. I'd like that you mentioned that they took 2 DNs last year. And part of me thinks that that's because they had to make up for AJ Epinesa not really showing out.
Sure. Even more so after this year, because AJ Epinesa really didn't progress at all in year 2.
No, so like you draft a couple of, you get Russo, you get those guys, and you're just kind of like, all right, well, Epinesa just kind of kicking them back, like just like, hey, listen, buddy, if you don't take a jump, like we've already filled your position, like that's right. That's the way that goes. But I will say, Beane, he doesn't draft on need, like immediate need anyways. Like he does seem to go, a step or two down the road to be like, okay, where is our weakness going to be in a couple of years? Because when you're picking at that area, especially late first round, you're the likelihood of getting a guy that's going to make a big impact immediately is not that high. Like, I mean,
No.
there's guys that can, if they have the right opportunity, and they've prepared themselves correctly, like they can jump in and have an impact, but like not where you're just kind of like, all right, we've got our guy for the next, 8 years here. Like that's pushing it. But if you see an opportunity there, I think, I think especially safety and linebacker are those spots. Because Edmonds, I mean, there's very few guys that are more polarizing, amongst the Bills fans than it seems that Edmonds, where some people really like him,
He's
other
right
people are
up
like they
there,
can't
sure.
get him off the team now. Like it's those thoughts are all over the map on him. But if you're able to find like a middle linebacker, like you can be like, all right, well, all right, Tremaine, there's your replacement. If you don't step up your game, it might be your replacement anyways. But like we'll just see you
What?
through the
Yeah.
rest of the season.
What's the
Um,
contract? I mean, Tremaine,
yeah.
somebody's going to pay Tremaine big money. What, I don't know if it's going to be Buffalo, but
Mhm.
you
Probably be
get a
Jacksonville.
linebacker. Yeah, probably.
Probably be
It's funny you say
Jacksonville.
that. It's funny you say that because with Jordan Poyer, I was like, oh, well, fuck it. Trade him to Jacksonville. They'll pay him they'll pay him all the money he wants. But yeah,
Right.
it's about the contract and value for the next 3 or 4 years. You don't want to pay Tremaine Edmonds $14 million a year. Maybe you trade up and you get Devin Lloyd and you pay him a quarter of that over the
Mhm.
next 4 to 5 years, or ditto with the safety if he can do that instead of Jordan Poyer, who's also younger. I don't think I don't think fans, I should say, should be sleeping on any position or assume anything. Even running back, Devin Singletary's in the last year of his
Mhm.
contract. Running backs in play at 25. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
Offensive guard, Roger Saffold signed 1 year. He's 33 years old. Offensive guard, I promise you, is in play if the right guy
Mhm.
happens to be there. Assuming that it's going to be, they will address corner, but assuming they're going to use their highest of draft resources on it, I think is a mistake. And I bring this up because I didn't think safety would be in play, but now with Poyer, and it seems like he ain't going to sign another team friendly deal. Well, you know what? That's an assumption on my end
Yeah.
based on Drew Rosenhaus and based on his wife's Twitter,
Yeah.
his wife's Twitter feed with the team friendly deals. But I
I'm
think
cu
safety's in play though.
I got a curious question because because again, I watch the Bills. I'm not a fan of the Bills. So
Right.
but I'm curious what's your walk away number for Poyer? What number does he come to you with and you say, "Nope, that's sorry, later."
3 years in anything more than 9 or 10 million.
Okay.
If it's more than that, if it's 3 years where I can get out of it after 2, and you're going to
Mhm.
pay him right around what he's gotten now, considering his age, I'd resign him. He was an all pro literally a year ago. So, I mean,
Mhm.
it's not like, it's not like the guy's skills are eroding.
Right.
But are you talking a 4 or 5 year deal where he's getting 12, 13 million a year for a guy who's 31 going into the season? No, and then I think you got to move on. But again, I don't think he's going to hold out like you said. I mean, it's a possibility, but
Mhm.
I think their strategy is going to be let's see what he looks like this year. Let's see what happens with the draft, and and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's very tough for me to see anybody on this team doing something that's going to really upset the room.
I agree.
I think everybody on that team has learned, from last year. You know, things didn't really get to them. They had a great season. But there were still distractions. Like it was made unnecessarily dramatic at a lot of points. And I think that you want to avoid that. I know it's very tough to avoid in the NFL in general. Like there's drama around every corner. Like that's just the way it goes. But things that can be easily avoided, like that's a little bit more difficult. Like I think that's a big part of getting a guy like Von Miller in the room because I I find it very hard to find anybody that would be like, man, I don't like that guy. Like, I mean, if it is, it's got to be doing something. It's got to do something with like him being kind of like a half celebrity, off the field.
Sure.
But I mean, I find it very hard to see that there would be guys that around the league that would just be like, man, I don't want that guy on my team. Like, really, you don't want one of the best one of the best rushers out there on your team, the guy that's been around for a little bit. Like that would be crazy. But that you don't make that kind of move without thinking like, all right, this is the little bit of an edge that's going to give us to push us into the Super Bowl and maybe win it.
I'll tell you, last point on Poyer and the Bills, and we'll talk Sabres for a few. We're going to find out how true it is, or how true he is to saying his, priorities for the Bills to win a Super Bowl, because the Bills have done everything you could realistically hope for to try to get themselves over the hump. Signing Von Miller was a very big deal. They upgraded at guard, in my opinion. They got a good tight end too in OJ Howard. They've signed a lot of guys. They've made the defense better with Von Miller, the addition of him. Plus, they brought back Shaq Lawson, Jordan Phillips. This defense should be better. Tim Settle, I like what they've done with the defensive line this year. Mm-hmm. That should help Jordan Poyer, and he's got to understand there's only so much money to go around right now. We can't give everybody deals. So what if his priority is winning a Super Bowl? We're going to find out. Now, does he need to be necessarily happy about not getting a new deal right now? No. I mean, that would be understandable. Mm-hmm. But is it going to become a distraction? That's what it comes down to. Is he going to become a distraction to his team? That's what's going to be worth monitoring. I think we'll start to maybe find out a little bit in the next couple of weeks, because, again, if they take a safety early in this draft, that means they're getting ready to move on from Jordan Poyer, and that's not a secret. If they don't really address that position, that means they're very open to, again, at the very least, they ain't trading Jordan Poyer if they don't get somebody now. And then we'll see what happens after the season. I want to, because I didn't have you on last week. This happened a week ago, but turning our attention to the Sabres, I wanted the Rick Jeanneret ceremony was awesome. Mm-hmm. We've all seen it by now, and it was really cool. It was emotional. I think it tugged at our heartstrings a little bit, the nostalgia factor, just one of the great talents in Buffalo sports history ever, period. Honor off the field. The one little dark cloud for me as I was watching it, and that kind of hung over a little bit, and I want to get your take on this, was the fans. When Duffer was, naming people, and then they brought up Terry Pegula, or they mentioned him, and they booed him. Now, to Duffer's credit too, he kind of went Pegula's, then just kept going without stopping, because if he would have stopped, the booing would have lasted longer. But what were your thoughts on that? Because for me, and look, and I wanted to talk to you about this, because I remember a year ago, every week, how many times did I tell you I fucking hated the Sabres? I loathed the Sabres with every fiber of my being a year ago.
On air and off air, it was constant. You're just like, I hate this team.
I absolutely bashed it, because I did. I hated this team. I hated ownership. I'm still not a fan of the owner, by the way. But my thought was this, Joe. Wrong place, wrong time. And again, how often do you get to voice your displeasure with Terry Pegula? Because you never fucking see him anywhere. Mm-hmm. He's never at the arena, or he's never announced. He doesn't talk to the media. So fans really don't get that opportunity, but they got that opportunity, and they did boo him. It just, I don't know. It felt wrong place, wrong time for me, but maybe I'm wrong. I usually could be wrong. What did you think?
I think you're dead wrong.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, I think you're dead wrong. This has been a big arguing point on Twitter. Like the Sabres diehards and the Mafia just do not agree on anything regarding this. It's very strange to see that kind of dichotomy, between people that like both, like fans like both of these teams. It's just they like one, they watch one more than they watch and care more about one than the other.
Sure.
But people who are very much more into the Sabres than they are the Bills, give me a reason why they should applaud him. Like an honest to God reason why they should applaud him.
I can't. I can't. Like, I wish I could. I can't.
Like that's the incorrect points that were made by people that are more on the Bills side of things was like, well, he saved the team. Well, no, he didn't. He bought the team. Tom Golisano saved the Sabres. Like he kept them from going anywhere. The
Good
league
point.
owned
Good
the
point.
Sabres. The NHL owned the team. Just like they did the Coyotes, back in the day. And Golisano is the one that saved him because he didn't want the team to leave Western New York. He's the savior of the Sabres. Like he made that happen. Terry just bought his favorite team from his childhood because he had the money to be able to do it. Like that's what that is, and he's run it like a fan, like a super fan who owns a team, for the better part of, 11 years now. Oh yeah. Right. It coincides with the playoff drought. Yes, that's right. Why wouldn't you boo the owner? Right. Because they haven't made the playoffs since he's bought them. Like, I mean, he bought them the year that they made the postseason, like the middle of that season. He doesn't get credit for that one.
No.
But like every season after that, that's on him.
Fair.
So yeah, I mean, listen, you never see Terry at the Sabres games because why? Because that happens. Like that's why. Because and he knows damn well that that's going to happen. Like it's unavoidable. But like it's RJ, so you can't not show up. Like you can't not be a part of that. Now maybe they could have just stayed up in the stayed in the box or something like that, and just watched from on high. Like that's fine. Rick's wife's watched from the from one of the boxes or whatever. Like that's fine. Like that's your decision. But like Kim and Terry decided like no, we're gonna be down here, and I'm gonna Terry's like I'm gonna bring RJ up to the podium. It's like nah man, like that's that's not the way to go about it. Like leave just kind of have an understanding of the situation. Understand where everything's kind of at with your own relationship with the team. And that to me is just being like, well, I'm an owner, I don't care. Like this, I'm going to be a part of this. Like, okay, like that's your decision. Nobody's going to tell them no. Like that's who's going to be the person in the Sabres organization be like, you know what, guys, just sit this one out. Like nobody's doing that. Like, come on, you tell me Kevin Adams is going to say like, guys, maybe just don't this one time. We'll have our own private party for Rick some other time.
Maybe Tim Murray would have, and then maybe that's part of the reason why he ain't working for the Sabres anymore. Man.
He might have locked him out of the building, is what he would have done. He would have been like, he's like, just change the locks for a day. It's fine. They don't have to know. Like they'll know, but they don't have to know. But listen, Sabres fans have been through a lot of shit. A lot of shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is the ownership's fault. Like they've bumbled and fumbled their way through so many things. Like think of how many executives and coaches they've torn through in 11 years since they owned the team. They bought the team. Darcy was a GM. Lindy was the coach. Well, Lindy was fired, not even a year, like a year after they bought the team, he's gone. Darcy's fired, 2 years later. Okay. They bring in Pat LaFontaine. They bring in Ted Nolan. Pat leaves the organization after 4 or 5 months. Under weird, clandestine circumstances. They have Ted Nolan in there to save face, basically, because the team was, embarrassing. Oh yeah, Ron Ralston. I forgot about his ignominious tenure after he took over for Lindy. Right? It was a very forgettable time. So I mean, they fired Lindy. They bring in Ron. Ron has a nice end of the season, the last like 15, 20 game, whatever it was. And then they signed him to a 2-year extension thinking like, yeah, this will work. This is great. And then they fired him 15 games into the next season. Like, okay. All right. And, then they bring in Ted Nolan to save face because, hey, he got a raw deal the last time around. Like, let's make good on this. And Pat LaFontaine, that was Pat's hire. Like that was Pat saying like, listen, let's do right by Ted. Let's get him in here.
Yeah.
And, then they hire Murray. Then LaFontaine leaves. So the Murray's the GM with a coach that he didn't bring in. And then Nolan's basically set up to be the fall guy for the tank season because, they knew damn well that if they put no good talent on the ice and kept trading any goalie that got hot for a week or two.
And they literally did too.
He literally traded him right away. Like, Jonas Enroth played great for like the first 2 months. Like, get out. See ya. Trade for Anders Lindback, who was doing terrible in Dallas. And then they bring Lindback comes in and plays great. And they're just like, all right, let's find some other bad goalies. We can't just trade this guy. So, it's, everything that's going on. I mean, listen, I could talk for 3 hours straight about all the bad decisions that have happened over time. That's not even getting into the bad player signings.
Yeah, that's just management and coaching.
That's 3 years worth of just bullshit that started. that's 3 years. That's not even getting into the stuff that they blew it with, after drafting Jack and everything that followed after that. Like, Sabres fans have got every damn right to boo. Like, I mean, what are you going to do? You get invite Tim Murray and Darcy and Bottrell out for the RJ ceremony so that they can boo him too. Like, there's only so many ways you could try to, find a way to distract from it. But like, the ownership takes the hit on that every time. Like that's on them. Kim's the damn team president. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you can't, it's inescapable. You got to take that hit. Like, you got to eat it. And like, you know what? If you don't want to eat it during RJ's ceremony, I don't know, find another way to do it.
Right.
Like find somewhere else where you can be accessible to the fans and have the fans just like air their grievances, make it Festivus for the rest of us when it comes to ownership, and just let people air out their grievances and have at it. Like that's the thing. I get it, and Bills fans who've gotten a little bit wrapped up with how how well things have gone the last month for the Sabres are like, wow, hey, this is some pride. This is good. I like this. And they don't understand what it's been like for Sabres fans. Like they don't, because they're not paying attention to them as close. Because honestly, why would they? What reason, if you're a hardcore Bills fan that casually likes the Sabres, what reason have you had for the last 10, 11, 12 years to want to watch the Sabres? You've had zero reason. They probably watched, Jack's first few games after they got him because they're like, wow, they got this new guy. He's looking pretty good. And then it's like, wow, he looks great. The team stinks. Our pal Dell made a T-shirt for that. I'm just here to see Jack. Like, like what else do you want? Like, I mean, that T-shirt alone encapsulates how Bills fans felt about the Sabres. It's like, wow, this team stinks, but I'll go watch this guy.
To further your point, as people are hopefully listening to this on Friday, Mike Harrington from the Buffalo News put out a tweet that I thought he was joking, but apparently it's for real. It's been Friday. Today, Friday marks 4,000 days. 4,000 days since the Buffalo Sabres have played in a postseason game. 4,000 days.
Yep.
Imagine that before your team plays in a playoff game. To your point about the booing, do you think that may be part of it too?
Sorry, you said 4,000 days, and the first question of this segment was like, is it fair that the Sabres fans booed the owners?
I was
I should have just said that. Like, yes, it's fair. It's completely fair.
The follow-up that I was going to have, I was going to assume that you were going to say what you said. But do you think that maybe part of the reason why the fans have so much, why they loathe Terry and Kim Pegula so much is because it's one thing to lose, but they've also, it's kind of like they hide. It's like their lack of accessibility over these years. Do you think that further fuels the anger of the fans? Like he never has press conferences, it seems. He doesn't address the losing, or they very rarely do, especially him. Yeah. Do you think that plays into a pretty big part of why these fans are so anti-Pegula? The Sabres fans, at least, for sure. You think so?
Yeah. Let's think about the last time I think we had Terry and Kim on the record, and it was when they announced that they were going to keep Jason Botterill, and the fans were like, "You got to fire this guy. Like he's terrible." And they said, "No, we're keeping him." And the big reason Kim said was, "Well, we have more information than the fans do, so that's why we're going to do this." So not only are you not doing what the fans wanted, you're talking down to them on top of it. And then you fired him a week later. Like you fired him and cleared out the staff a week later. Like, okay. Like, I mean, I get it. They wanted to keep Botterill, but they wanted him to fire like a bunch of his staff. And he's like, hell no, I'm not doing that. Right. Why am I going to keep, doing my job and then fire these guys? And hell no, I'm not doing that. Like, to Jason's credit, he didn't do that. Hey, I criticize Botterill for everything that he's done, and he's earned it. But like, it's a pretty stand-up move on his part to just be like, I ain't gonna be the executioner for the guys that I brought in. Like, screw that. So like it's that kind of stuff from them where there's an arrogance that isn't earned when it comes to that. It's like it's a I don't know. I guess maybe it's like it's a rich person thing where they think money equals intelligence. That ain't it, man. Because like that's how many owners have we seen that are just like the absolute worst, in managing their teams, and just like they're just kind of I don't know what I'm doing. Like look around baseball. There's a bunch of them. Look around the NFL. Like Shad Khan's got a lot of money, but Jacksonville's terrible. Like except for that 1 year where they made it to the AFC title game. Like that's it. That's the kind of stuff where you can't act like that and expect the fans to be like, oh, well, all's forgiven. Like, no. Sabres fans they've earned every bit of being able to be mad at owners. Like that's what it comes down to. Like, because a lot of times the fans have been 100% correct on what should be done, and it isn't done. And then when it is done, eventually it's like, oh, right, okay, that was the right move. Gee, we're so smart for thinking of it. It's like the fans are just like, yeah, we told you a year ago, we told you 2 years, we told you forever ago. Like, this is what you got to do.
Yeah. Um, I'll say one last thing too. You're right. I mean, look, if this was a debate and we were on a stage right now, I would be taking the L. Okay, there's no question about that. But I did see a tweet. It was from Salmon Transporter. I don't have it on the screen to put up, but
Mhm.
this is one thing I don't agree with. And he says the Bagulas killed the Sabres. I agree with that. And he says their revival is to be determined. I agree with that too. But then he says Granado and Adams possibly working out would be absolute dumb luck. That's what I don't buy because, I mean, was it really dumb luck with Bean and McDermott too? I don't buy that theory. You got to give the owner credit. I don't care how many times they fail. It's not dumb luck. I don't like that wording because it's like you never know for when you hire someone, you never know if they're going to work out for sure. I mean,
Mhm.
certain guys you have a higher chance of it working out, but I don't him having McDermott or Kevin Adams and now Granado as head coach, just like on the football side with Bean and McDermott. I don't call that shit dumb luck. Give the guy, assuming he's the one. Well, he is the one because even if he didn't think of those guys, he signed off on it.
Mhm.
As much as you want to bash Terry and Kim, whether it's the football side or well, not really the football side because
You
they're
can't really
good,
complain
but
about the football
right,
side.
exactly. But on the hockey side, let's just say if Adams does turn out to be an amazing GM, and at least seeing a little bit of promise. And Granado turns out to be a really good coach on a team that becomes a good team. I think Terry Bagula deserves some credit for that. You can't just call it dumb luck. I mean, that's hating a guy without having any form of objectivity at all, in my opinion, at least. Anyway,
Let me provide some perspective. I think saying it's dumb luck is a little harsh. I don't think it's entirely off the mark though. Um, Adams, like the circumstances around them hiring Adams was very questionable. The last season that Bottrell was the GM, Adams was going around traveling with the team and learning hands on, like what the ins and outs of what's going on with that, because he
mm-hmm.
was being groomed for the job, which is a little weird to do when you got the guy on the job right there in front of him. Like that's accidentally training him on the job. Like that's very that's not luck. It's kind of shitty, honestly. Especially given how things went. Especially with how Bottrell's firing went down. Again, deserved firing, but but if you got the guy that's shadowing you for your job, hanging around for the last like 3-4 months of the season, like I don't know, it's a little weird. It's a little weird to me, especially
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
this, Adam's first task after he was hired was to fire all the guys that they wanted Bottrell to fire. So like that's it's not great. And Granado, like, listen, he was what, Ralph? I think Ralph brought him on as an assistant. Was that Ralph or was it Phil? I think it was Ralph. I don't know. Assistant coaches and coaches are all blending together
Yeah.
over the years here. But Don's been a lifetime assistant at the NHL level. He was a guy that um, did a lot of work with younger players, and he's a guy that loves to coach. He's a coach that loves to coach. Lucking into it, I think, is looking past some of the reasons why they didn't look very hard for somebody else. They did their casual search. They reached out to a bunch of people that they had reached out to previously before they landed on Ralph. Going back and just checking those roads and being like, hey, any interested again? Like, I know it's extra bad from like the last time we talked to you about like interested and you want to do it. And then having Granado turn out to be a really good guy, a really good fit for this. I think that's an incredible stroke of luck. I don't know how well recruited that is on their part, because if you liked him that much from the start, make him your head coach.
Right.
Say forget Ralph. We don't need Ralph. We got this guy. He's the guy we believe in. And that's where you can do things like it's kind of PR-ish, but like you can change the narrative after the fact.
Sure.
Like you can go back, things are good with Don now. You can go back and say like, he was our guy all along. Well, yes, he was, but it's because you didn't really try hard to look for anybody else because you were happy because Granato's not going to command a lot of money, and you're already paying Ralph Kruger money to go away. You've paid every coach that you've hired money to go away before their contract was up.
Fair, yeah.
Like that's that's different than being in McDermott with the Bills because I think back to the McDermott circumstances. The league brought McDermott to the Bills' front door in 2014. Like, hey, this is the guy. You gotta bring this guy in 13 or 14. They're like, hey, this is the guy you should really consider. You should bring him in. And then they're like, oh yeah, hey, maybe we'll do that. And then they bring in Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan blows their doors off with his his dog and pony show. And they're like, oh no, never mind. We got our guy now. Like that again. That was a Pagula hire. Like that's
right.
That's
yeah.
So like but like then they made up for it later on. Being like, all right, we should let's retrace our steps. Let's go back to the people we talked to before and like, okay, yeah, we'll bring that guy in. So like you're lucky that he didn't sign somewhere else. He didn't sign up to coach somebody else before that. And you're lucky that he had a connection to a GM that wanted to work with him. Like, that's that's having things kind of that's a happy accident. That's not luck. That's just, that's having things work out. I don't buy that in this case because it's too much about what happened with Bottrell, transitioning over to Adams it's a very murky time, and it ties in with all the, all the nonsense the ownership did with the COVID timing, all the shitty stuff they did with their, employees all through the company, all that stuff. Like everything was done to being able to cut corners and save money to, maintain their lifestyle and keep the boat being built, like it's not, you can't just carve one thing out and be like, yes, it's good because of this. Like nothing they do, you can't really do it because everything that's connected around them at that point, especially, everything around the start of the pandemic, it's all connected. Like, all their cost cutting measures, all that stuff was all connected because they're like, listen, we got to pare this down. We got to do whatever. Now, Adams gets established, and to Adams' credit, he's like, okay, here's what I need for us to be successful. Like, because he's a smart business guy. He gets it. He's a smart hockey guy. He's been in the game. So he knows how it works. So he goes and gets Jason Karmanos to be the assistant GM to run Rochester. Great, Stanley Cup winner, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards. Great guy to bring in. Has an eye for talent. Great guy to bring in. That's good. They expand the analytics department to bring in guys that are really freaking good. Like their analytics department, I will argue, is one of the best in the league. With Sam Ventura, Matt Barlow, like this whole crew of guys that they brought in are really, really, really good. Like they are, if you're looking to, to find the best bang for your buck, these guys will do it. And that's smart to do because they obviously don't want to spend a lot of money on the hockey team anymore. Like, right. Okay, fine. But this is a long belabored way of getting around saying that, saying it's dumb luck that they got these guys. It's a little harsh, but it's not wrong.
Okay. That's fair. You're right.
I mean, I know. I listen. I get it. You're more of a Bills guy, so, and the Pagulas have been nothing but good for the Bills. I get it, and like a lot of Bills fans understand that, but
I kind of
they don't understand the view from the Sabres side of things where it's been so bad. Like this team is the worst team in the league 4 times in 11 years that they've owned them.
Right. I kind of fall in the middle though. I don't think the Pagulas deserve as much credit as they get for the Bills being good, and at least before this conversation today, I kind of felt like the Pagulas didn't deserve all the criticism that they get for them being so bad, but you've kind of, you talked me into it, man. So
I don't have an axe to grind with them either. These are just statements of fact. Like this is just like the way it's been. Like
you're not giving us emotional, fan.
I'm not saying I wasn't
dialogue here.
I'm a Red Wings fan for crying out loud. Like,
I want to save for next week when it comes to the Sabres. I was going to ask you this week, but I want to talk about this actually next week because it's kind of layered. I want to get your thoughts on Devin Levi not signing with the Sabres. And I want to talk a little bit about UPL, just this future. I want to talk about the Sabres goaltending and how you see it playing out over the next couple of years, because I'm confused a little bit and maybe you can enlighten me. And again, that's going to be kind of a layered, textured conversation that we have.
I can give you a quick hitter on Levi. I know I've rambled a lot here. The quick hitter on Levi is that he's played one college season. He's a sophomore. He's played one college year because his freshman year he couldn't play. So he has this is his first season in college hockey. He puts up one of the best seasons ever in college hockey.
Right.
He's 20 years old. What do you want to do when you're a 20-year-old in college?
I know what I want to do.
Like,
I'm a
yeah.
20-year-old in college.
What if you're a 20-year-old in college who's like the big man on campus because he plays on like one
True.
of the top sports teams there? Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's robbed of the Hobie Baker, like being a Hobie Baker finalist. He's the best goalie in the country. He put up a season better than Ryan Miller's Hobie Baker, which season,
Right.
and he's not going to win the Hobie. I put that on. That's a giant chip on my shoulder if I'm him. They lose. They lose in the tournament on a bad goal by Levi. Wouldn't you want to make up for that? I would.
True. Yeah.
So like he gets, so he's going to get to play another. You get to be another guy. You'd be in college for another year, which is great. If he plays as well as he did, or he does better somehow, boy, that really hammers it home, doesn't it? Like at that point, they have to make you have to win the Hobie at that rate. And
right.
If you got the best goalie in the country, you can go pretty far in the tournament. So, they lose in the first round in the tournament this year. That stinks. They can make up for it next year because if he's the best, like that, Northeastern's they're not loaded with talent, but like they got some young guys. They're going to be a really young team, but Hockey East is pretty weak. So, BU and BC aren't the BU and BC of old. New Hampshire's not the UNH of old. These are Maine. Like, the new hot teams are Lowell and Providence and, now, UMass and now Northeastern. Like, it's a different world, but those teams are all going to be a little bit weaker next year. UMass will be weaker. Providence might be a little bit stronger, but like Northeastern, they could, they won Hockey East this year. Like, they were the best team in the regular season this year. No reason why they can't run it back. There's zero reason why they can't run it back. So why not give it a shot? Like, again, he's 20 years old. It's not like Portillo. Portillo's 22, or he's going to be 22 very soon. Like, it's a different world. So, I get it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like I said, next week, I want to kind of hit on UPL a little bit more too, and kind of tie all three of those guys in together and how you think the immediate future might play out. So the last time we got together and did one of these and we did a starting five was on February 25th. And we did Will Ferrell movies. And I kind of, I should have just buried this one and not even brought this up again. I could have saved myself a little more humiliation.
You didn't lose that bad.
You won 61% to 39%. I think 20 points plus is an ass whooping. Let me recap the draft from February 25th. You took Anchorman, Old School, Elf, Blades of Glory, and Stranger Than Fiction. Which, by the way, I thought that was going to get shit on, and it totally didn't. And I took Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, the other guys, Semi-Pro, and Kicking and Screaming. Here's the thing, Joe. Not really sure what much more I could have done.
No.
I maybe in round two, if I would have picked Old School instead of Talladega Nights, maybe that might have made a couple point difference. Mm-hmm. But I was definitely you did a better job on this one for sure. I can't even cry about conspiracy theorism and all that other stuff, man. This was just a straight ass woman. But like I said,
my redemption of that is that people love the Stranger Than Fiction picks. Right? Like nobody buried it. Like I was like. Okay,
I thought it was gonna be a tight race in part because you did take that. I'm like, I thought people might shit on that, but they certainly didn't. All right, so this week is gonna be the first. We're gonna do this for 3 straight weeks now. We're gonna do sitcoms, and we're gonna start this week. We're gonna do 90s sitcoms, and then next week we'll do 80s, and then we'll go all the way to the 70s. So that's how we'll do it. And I'm looking now. All right, so you had the first because you took Anchorman. Anchorman, that was, which by the way, again, I mean, I would have done the same thing. I would have taken that with my first pick too.
Okay.
I didn't know it was going to perform quite that well as it did.
It wasn't quite like Sopranos, like anything Sopranos close, number one. Yes, I mean, it was pretty close.
It was. I thought Step Brothers. I thought some people might have said, "Oh, you could have taken Step Brothers."
I got a lot of people telling me that
anyway, but
I got a lot of people saying like, "Why didn't you take Step Brothers?" And I was like, I could have,
right,
but I didn't. So I took Anchorman.
Here will be the rules for the sitcoms this week with the 90s. The only thing I want to say is this, because it can always be a technicality. Like this is sitcoms and not drama, but let's just say it was 90 shows. you could technically take The Sopranos because I believe it started in like 99, so
Mhm.
technically you'd be right. But I want to do this like fair. Let's say that the show had to at least be on for parts of 3 seasons in the 90s for it to count. And I'll give you a couple that would disqualify. And I do hope you would have drafted these. I'm just telling you about this for the first time now. Hopefully this fucks up your mind. Look, shows like Will and Grace and King of Queens, they all premiered in late 98. So they only had like 1 or 2 seasons in the 90s. So I really don't want to count them. They got to be at some point of the 90s. Now I go first.
You didn't kill my draft board there.
All right. Well,
so,
I don't, again, you and I have not talked about any of these beforehand, so I can't begin to know if what you're thinking, but I will say
I know there's one that you won't pick.
There's one I won't pick.
Yeah, I know it.
I don't.
Maybe you've given up on that now. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
There is
Who's your number one, Pat?
There is one I won't pick. You're damn right about that. And if you pick it, then we'll discuss it. Look, no mysteries here. It has to be Seinfeld for me. I think, to be fair, I think there's 2 or 3 shows from the 90s that are at least worthy of consideration.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm not going to overthink this here. And I'm going to say what I always say when it comes to Seinfeld is that I did not love the show as much when it was on in the 90s. I fell in love with the show in syndication in later years is when I really started enjoying, because I didn't think Jerry Seinfeld was all that funny. It was the other people on the show that I really enjoyed. And I also hated his little stand-up bits in the earlier seasons anyway, at the beginning and the end of every show. I didn't like that a lot. But I will tell you this. I do have and I'm using air quotes, a cable service that I subscribe to, which basically means I can watch literally anything. And one of the stations is they have like a bunch of 24/7 stations where the same show runs over and over and on the loop. And every night when I go to bed, now I watch Seinfeld when I lay in bed. So I pretty much watch Seinfeld literally every night. I don't, sometimes I go right to sleep, but I always have it on when I go to sleep every night. But anyway, yeah, Seinfeld for me is a relatively easy choice. Now you're going to be on the clock and you're going to have 2.
Okay. So I think this is, I love like 90, like this is my wheelhouse, like 90s stuff. Like this is when I was watching the most TV. Really, because that's the way it goes. But when it comes to the comedies, though, I'm very surprised that you took Seinfeld from me, so I can't take that. But my first choice is a spinoff. It's Frasier.
Yeah,
Frasier. Oh my God, what a freaking show Frasier was. Like not Kelsey Grammer's Frasier was always great, but David Hyde Pierce as Niles coming in there, just like I forget who played the old man.
I can't remember his name either. I know you're talking about. I'm picturing it as you're saying it.
Yeah, but you've got with Roz and the whole group there. Like that was just such a great show, and it was done so well. And like spinoffs don't usually do that great. For probably for good reason, because you're just trying to like cape on ride the coattails of the
right.
The
good
show.
Yeah.
But Frasier did not do that. Frasier was freaking great. I might be jumping ahead on this one. And I might be doing it because I think I'm going to steal one from you, which is just a bonus, but it's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But like, that's one that like I loved at the time. And then like TBS would show it like nonstop in mornings, like constantly. And I would be like, all right, well, I'm good for the next however long this is on for. So yeah, but like, it was just so good. And like Will Smith, like the entire cast was great. Even, except when they switched Aunt Viv's. When Aunt Viv came in, it was just like, all right, no. Like that, that was like that. But that's basically saying like, yeah, we know this is over with, but we got to keep it going. But yeah, like, it's an unhateable show, and it was done so well and so smart.
I got thoughts on both your picks, because I'm going to tell you in all honesty, right now, you just picked my 2 and 3.
No kidding.
These were my top 3 in order too.
Wow.
Actually, not quite in order, because I had Fresh Prince 2 and Frasier 3. But anyway, I was apprehensive about Frasier when it first came on. In part, I forgot the wife's name that was on Cheers when she wasn't going to be married to him anymore. I was apprehensive about that. I can't.
Lilith.
Lilith, yeah.
Yeah,
I was
Baby
drawing a
North.
blank. I was
Holy crap.
apprehensive because of that, but yeah, man, that show was really, really good. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, man, look, I've come to appreciate the comedy. I've come to appreciate that show a lot more as I've gotten older because it was
Mhm.
always funny and it was always good for some gags and some laughs and you know, um, the way Uncle Phil always treated Jazzy Jeff. I was just it was fucking funny. Carl, there was so many funny things about that show, but what I really appreciated as I got older was a lot of the shows brought out a lot of emotion. There were a lot of
Mhm.
serious tones. Sometimes they were at the forefront, sometimes they were underlining serious tones, but there were some really tender moments or some really serious moments. It was educational and informative in a way as well. So I
Yeah.
really come to appreciate that show. And I don't give a shit what's going on right now with Will Smith. That doesn't take away from the
Yeah.
fact that that was, one of the all-time great sitcoms, man. It really truly was. So
Mhm.
those are two really good picks. I'm this is the thing.
This is
As we
easy
were
for you. You can just keep going down your list now.
no, well, I could, but here's the problem. After the first three, for me, it
Mhm.
falls off so much.
Uh-oh.
And I'm probably gonna get laughed at this one big time. And I don't give a shit because I would stay true. I'm in one of those staying true to my list kind of modes right now today.
Mhm.
But Full House.
Okay.
As corny and
Alright.
cheesy as that was, I was a big Full House fan. It was on for 8 seasons, nearly
Yeah.
200 episodes. Um, I liked Bob Saget, I like John Stamos. I liked everyone on that show except whoever it was that played Kimmy Gibbler. I hated Kimmy Gibbler, but
She was
Rebe
supposed to be annoying.
she did a good job of it. Rebecca, Lori Loughlin, oh my God, she was so hot on that show. But yeah,
Aunt Becky. Everybody
and
loved Aunt
yeah,
Becky.
I liked that show a lot. And again, not to the extent that the Fresh Prince did, but it kind of had some life messages in the show, little sneaky ones. Again, no, I'm not trying to compare the substance of that compared to the Fresh Prince, but in its own way, it was pretty good. And then another show, and I don't know how popular this one is, but for me personally, I really liked it a lot, and that's Spin City. I was a huge, huge, huge Michael J. Fox fan from Family Ties in the
Mhm.
80s, which might be a spoiler for next week's episode, to to the Back to the Future movies. He was one of the
Mhm.
biggest stars, and I really liked him a lot. And it was a funny like fictionist version of the mayor's office in New York City, man.
Yep.
Mayor Randall Winston. He was great, but it was a good cast. And again, not like necessarily real huge stars, but guys and girls you've seen on a bunch of other shows since then. But yeah, I was a big Michael J. Fox fan. So yeah, man, I'm gonna go with Spin City. I don't know how that'll play out with folks, but whatever.
I like that. Like that. Spin City's a great call. Like that
Yeah,
was it was an underappreciated show
yeah.
of the time. In my mind, anyways. But like, yeah, I can't hate on that. I can't hate on that at all. Now, my next two picks are going to be they're kind of polar opposite, I guess. In a way, but also extremely similar in another way. Um, because I'm going to go with, and I've talked this up so many other times in the past about the show, but Roseanne. Um, Roseanne was so well done and so good. And I don't care about when they brought it back in the last few years. Like that doesn't
Right.
count. That's
That's
stupid.
not about that. Right.
Um, but like that show, holy smokes, man! Like you didn't really have shows about like lower middle class families on TV, like especially sitcoms. Like you didn't really have that,
Hmm.
and that was definitely one of those. And they pushed boundaries constantly
A
on that
lot.
show.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that was just because Roseanne loved to push buttons, or I'm pretty sure that's probably why.
I'm sure it is.
Um, but like when you got John Goodman as Dan, I mean, John Goodman's an all timer. In everything like that.
Yeah.
That he's just so good, and he was so great as Dan. Like he was just if you had a dad like Dan, you were probably equal parts, laughing all the time and really intimidated. Because the episodes were like, if you got on Dan's bad side, it was like, nope, don't want any part of. That's like angering a giant bear. Like you didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Roseanne. Oh my God, Roseanne was so good, and it was such a funny show too. The other one, the next one I'm going with here was really controversial at the time. Watching it back now, it would probably still not be like back in the day. You'd be like, oh, well, I mean, just in general now, you'd be like, oh, you probably couldn't make a show like that now. Well, yeah, probably not, but for different reasons now than probably in the past. Married with Children.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
Um,
eligible. Good show. You're
that
well, you're
that
right,
was
man.
like that show put like Fox Network kind of on the map a little bit. I mean that well, The Simpsons did that, um, but like Married with Children though was like so controversial because they just did a bunch of like kind of half raunchy jokes and dumb stuff, but like Ed O'Neill and Katie Seagal and Christina Applegate, like Jesus, like
I
that's
loved
like a
her.
home run crew right there. Like that they were all so good. And then stupid Bud, like Bud was just such an idiot through every episode. You're just like, all right, whatever, like that's fine. And then they get the crazy neighbors and like everything is like doing lots of different theme sort of stuff. And it was definitely more a lowbrow comedy, but like looking back, it's kind of smart.
It is,
It
and
was
you're
kind of
right.
smart. Like it's some of it like now, like there's a lot of jokes you couldn't get away with now.
I agree. I
But like
agree.
for the most part though, that was a really damn funny show.
I didn't realize that it was so entrenched in the 90s because I'm looking because I wanted to disqualify,
Felt like an 80s show, didn't it?
Yeah, I wanted to say,
Yeah.
fuck this is bullshit, and you shouldn't be able to pick it. But it ran all the way to 1997. So
Yeah.
god damn it. That kind of makes me mad. Roseanne was a show that I thought was trashy at first, but and then it really grew on me, and I really
Mhm.
again came to appreciate it a lot. It was funny, and it dealt with a lot of shit too.
I think
All
that was
right.
a show that got better in syndication because you got to watch it,
Yeah.
easier, more regularly. And like, then at that time, you're just like, it comes on at like 4 PM. You're just like, all right, whatever. Like, I'll watch this. And you're just like, wow, this is actually really funny. As opposed to like carving out time at like 8 or 9 at night. And you're just like, I'd rather be doing anything else.
Yeah, I agree 100%. God damn it. I'm mad about Married with Children. Married with Children could be eligible. It's one of those shows that could also be eligible for the 80s too. That'd be a potential
Yeah,
spoiler.
it
It
does
was
fit. Like
it did
it
it
started
it,
87, right?
it
Yeah.
aired, yeah, it aired in 3 seasons in the 80s. So maybe that'll be one that we hear about twice.
You might steal it from me next week.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So I got two more. One of these is easy, okay, for me anyway, at
Mhm.
least. So my fourth pick, I'm gonna go with Family Matters.
Nice.
It was kind of a lighter version of Fresh Prince in a way. I remember it being on Friday nights on ABC. I used to like watching it. Here's a fun fact about the show. And again, it was nothing, wasn't the greatest show ever, but
Mhm.
it was cool, man. And I like Steven and Stefan too. That was pretty cool. But here's a fun fact you might not have known about the show, and I didn't know until I was doing a little bit of research and looking these up because unlike you, I actually take this serious and I try to win, whereas you just happen to keep stumble upon winning. Which, by the way, you are 26-12 in these, so you
It's
more
pretty
than
good.
2-1 on me in winning
Pretty
these.
good.
But here's a fun fact: this is the second longest running U.S. sitcom with a predominantly black cast behind only the Jeffersons.
Wow.
So that show was on for a long time, 9 seasons, 215 episodes. I never
Wow.
realized it was on for that long.
The
That was a good
TGIF schedule, like Full
yeah.
House, like made that be a thing, and then Family
Mhm.
Matters like jumped right in and owned it too.
TGIF on Friday was probably the second coolest block of programming after Thursday NBC must see TV during
Yeah.
the comedy era. All right, now this is where I'm stuck here on the last one, and God,
Okay.
I hope because what I want to say is so fucking corny. I know it's corny, but I can't help myself. It's just corny. Um, well,
If you have any hesitation, you probably shouldn't pick it.
I'm 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 uh I'm gonna pick it. Boy Meets World.
Okay.
7 seasons, 158 episodes. Corey Topanga. I'm not gonna say anything else beyond that. So there you go. I'm going with
Mr.
Boy Meets
Feeney.
World.
Mr. Feeney was great. He was the voice of
Mr.
Kit.
Feeney was great. Yes. How do I not include him when I'm trying to talk this up? But I don't know how that might play out really bad for me. I don't know. Maybe it will play good though, because again, Corey and Topanga, that's one of the really cool teenage romances
Yeah.
of all time. I saved the
Mhm.
last pick for you. I'll tell you afterwards if you don't pick it, who I was really torn on.
Okay. My last pick is one that was unfortunately cut short for reasons not having to do with the show. But it's News Radio.
Great show.
Phil Hartman on News Radio was
Yeah.
like just
Mhm.
so good. And you had him, you had Stephen Root, like Andy Dick, like all right, whatever, whatever. Like Andy Dick was not usual Andy Dick, just being annoying in that whole show. But like he was actually pretty fun. But man, like that was a show I wish could have had a longer run. They tried, after Hartman was murdered, like they tried.
Right.
John Lovitz he wasn't brilliant like
He
that. I mean, that show also had Joe Rogan in it, for crying out loud. Like how did that guy end up in a sitcom to start his career? It's crazy.
Right. I agree.
But news radio, man, that was a show that when I got into it, and it was right before Hartman was killed, and I was just like, oh, why? Like, you say why for so many reasons, because he was so funny, and he seemed like just such an affable person and all that. And then, he gets like this sitcom, and then you're just like, all right, he's gonna kill it on this, and he did. And then, things happened. But that show, man, like that was such a funny show. Oh, Dave Foley. How do I forget Dave Foley?
Yeah.
For God's sake.
It really is a good show.
Kids in the Hall, man. Like, so good. It was so good. And like, it gets forgotten about.
It's almost like a cult classic.
Yeah. I mean, it was only one of 4 years, 4 seasons, something like that. Like, yeah. It was so good.
The show that I was torn on that I didn't end up picking, and neither did you. I almost picked Third Rock from the Sun. I kind of like that show with John Lithgow a lot. That was good. A couple other ones that neither of us picked.
Was that bulk of the 90s? Third Rock?
96 to 2001.
Wow. I would have totally thought that was a 2000s one, but
it ran from 96 to 2001, 6 seasons. Saved by the Bell is one that I at least flirted with. Everybody Loves Raymond, which again is one of those shows that you could pick in the 90s or the 2000s, because it ran from 96 to 2005. I wasn't a fan of Ray Romano though, as much as everybody else. Brad Garrett was the star of that show for me, anyway. Martin.
That was a really good cast, though.
It was a good cast.
That was an excellent cast.
It was a good cast. Martin's another show that deserves consideration. Yeah. And then there's one show I'm surprised neither of us picked it, Home Improvement, just because of its sheer popularity.
Yeah,
I wasn't a big fan of that show though, so I would have been not staying true to myself.
I was for a bit, but like I don't know. It's like I aged out of it. Or so I don't know if it's like aged out of it is even the right way. It was just kind of like the bits got kind of
stale,
tired, stale. Yeah, stale. I think stale is the right word. Pat, there's seems to be one show that we've both skipped here.
What's that?
I'm looking at the top shows of the 90s, and what's it? Friends? Have you heard of the show Friends?
I've heard of it.
I don't know. I don't know how we. I don't know. It seems to be at the top of everybody's lists here, but like we neither of us picked it. That's weird.
We're gonna get a lot of shit for it. You know that, right? I'm telling you right now. I could have
gonna be like, I'm not voting for either of you.
Your 5, my 5, your 5. Every honorable mention I just said, I'd pick every single last one of them before Friends. I just never liked that show, and I don't know how much shit you catch for it. I catch a lot of shit for it. Yeah. I'll never pick Friends as a category. I do like the theme song though. I'm gonna admit that I do like the theme song, and I love Jennifer Aniston. Yeah. I hated that show with such a deep passion. I
toyed very much with picking Friends with the last pick, just to be that guy, just to be like the total prick. Oh, you absolutely would have.
You know very well might win the poll anyway, but
if I lose this poll because people say like, why'd you pick news radio? You could have picked Friends. I'd be like, you know what? I'll eat the L. I'll eat the L like steak. Like it'll be delicious.
I picked Boy Meets World over Friends. So
we're both trying to throw this, Pat.
There you go. Let me recap this poll here. So, all right. So I selected Seinfeld, Full House, Spin City, Family Matters, Boy Meets World. Joe selects Frasier, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Roseanne, Married with Children, and News Radio. The only thing I will comment, if you're watching or listening, if you like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, vote for it. If you don't like it, don't vote for it. Just don't be petty, because first of all, Will Smith's only one character in an amazing cast, and it was a great show. I could see a couple of people, because of what recently happened with Chris Rock and shit like that. That's stupid and petty. Don't be that guy or that girl out there, man.
I'm gonna find every Roll Eyes gif to send at people that say that to me, and just be like, okay, all right, yep, you said your piece, yep.
All right, so this will be, like I said, this will be on Twitter. Either check mine or Joe at Joe Yerdon. Right around noonish. This poll's up. It's up all weekend, so vote for your favorite. Of course, check out Maintenance Day podcast. Joe and Lance drop it every Monday. It's been really, really good. Thanks, man. It's good to have you back, man. Again, it really sucks all the circumstances that have went down, and I feel awful for you, man. But it's good. Selfishly, I'm not gonna lie. Selfishly, it's good to have you back here, not just for the podcast, but just to look at you and have conversations too, man. It feels good. So I appreciate you, man. You know I love you, man. Thanks for being back, and yeah, that's all I got for you, buddy.
It's good to be back.
All right, talk to you soon, guys.